Jacob. So
this dude showing up with a freaking 10
There's
ton.
so much, and even if we had more, I don't think it.
oh my god.
Vaughn getting just does a burn.
No, that is that
Oh,
Vaughn?
no, I like this.
You also have gigantic hands.
In that car right now. We didn't fly all the ways here to watch you walk around in a sling.
Look, the holidays are coming. I don't know which holiday it is. Could be Valentine's Day. Could be Arbor Day. Could be any day. Might be Black Friday. Might be Christmas. I have no idea when this ad is coming out. But what I do know is that you can use podcast 25 at checkout and save yourself 20%. So why haven't you done it yet? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Outerzone, the official podcast of Formula Drift. My name is Jacob Geddens, and today got Mr. Ryan Sage on. I almost called you Ryan Lontaine for a second. I had to check myself.
That's okay. I would appreciate that. I like Ryan. He's a good man.
The many Ryans of Formula Drift. It could be like it could be a slideshow.
We're all balls.
I kind of want to get into it, man. Shoreline Showdown. I believe we are officially scrapping the terminology of LB2, Long Beach 2. It is to be named and spoken of moving forward, as I have been informed, as Shoreline Showdown.
Oh, that sounds like either a Kevin or an Andy thing, I'm guessing, right?
It came to me through Brian, but it came through somebody else and then came to me because I said LB2. And they're like, no. We were told explicitly it is Shoreline Showdown. I'm like, okay, that works. So,
I think I've used Shoreline Showdown once in my just everyday discussions with people. LB2 is just so much easier. But we've kind of invested in these names a little bit, and that's the official name. That's what it'll be known by. And you needed something that kind of spoke to the event itself. Streets of Long Beach, before there was an LB2 or a Shoreline Showdown, was really easy to understand. How do you say that again, but say different? And the shoreline part of it is kind of the underlying pillar that has kind of been driving the design after it was approved and conceived of. So there you go.
No, that's fair. I think I like it. I like how Showdown kind of summarizes this, like the end of the season, final round, that kind of thing. Obviously, we're kicking things off on Shoreline, so like that adds to it. So I'm sure the entire FD marketing department was excruciating to get that together.
Yeah, well, we actually borrowed. I don't know if you remember this, but we borrowed Showdown from the old Texas round at Texas Motor Speedway. And then we just, hijacked that and added Shoreline. I should send you some of here's the top 5 names that were derived from the top 20. And
that's funny. I mean, that'd be interesting. I think that'd be kind of a cool piece anyways. Just to see how long this all went through. Which kind of brings me to the first thing I want to get on. How long has this been in conception? And now, obviously we're less than a week away. Well, we're a week away from when it's going on. But at what point did you go, this is what we're going to end up doing?
I gave a very long and rambling and somewhat incoherent speech at the first Long Beach this year about this when we announced it. Where I kind of spoke a little bit to the top line picture. I think we knew, we always known that Irwindale was going to go away at some point. And we started kind of hearing that, it always gets said that, that it's going to go away. And it's happened so many times before. But this time actually felt real because there were different elements in the discussion that weren't around in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth time. And so, we kind of started planning for that. I want to say that, probably the first notion of it was in the season of 2023, maybe 3/4 of the way through, we started talking about it.
Oh, okay.
And 2024 comes around. I would say 90 days out, it became pretty clear this was going to be the last one, but we still didn't know because of all the past history. The week of the event, literally on like that Tuesday, we were told it's 100%. It's over. We're actually closing the facility, after this event in some time, and then moving right into the like deconstruction phase or demo phase or whatever you want to call it. We didn't say anything to teams. The only thing that I said that I felt would be understood by most of the teams, if not the older, mature teams that have been around for a long time, not mature as in immature and mature, but
we have both of those too. But
season is, enjoy this event. It might be the last one. And I think that's all I really said. And I think, that may have resonated with a pretty good group of the drivers because people did treat it that way. But we didn't make any comments whatsoever about, the fact of that.
Nothing official.
And we didn't announce that it was, going to be Long Beach. We didn't really know. But we had been looking at options from about halfway through the 24 season. I don't remember the exact date when it became apparent that this was an option. It was a conceptual option that kind of derived from our frustration about not being able to find something that had the gravitas of Irwindale, whether it was in Southern California or whether it was in another market. We really needed it to be in Southern California. And absent, a downtown LA street build, Coliseum, something like that, things that are can be almost near impossible to do with the timeline that we were working with and, the appropriate funding mechanism. We basically were approached by essentially the saviors, which is the Grand Prix folks, Dwight Tanaka and Jim McCallion. And, one day I get a knock in my office and here comes Kevin, here comes Andy. And it basically just started. I remember this exact thing. It was like, what do you think about this? And then they laid it out and, gave me the broad details of it. I knew that we had some overarching discussions conceptually about, hey, should we go back to the World Championship venue? Is that even possible? There's cars there now, blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of how the ball got rolling. And from that point forward, it was like, okay, how do we do a Grand Prix on our own? Having to use the city, closing city streets, services, all that kind of stuff. Is that possible to put together in principle and paper it, before a certain period where we have to make a decision about a season announcement?
Yeah, I guess permitting alone is not easy, but the positive association between FD, Grand Prix of Long Beach, the city of Long Beach as well, like us always being around and promoting it and doing positive things. And I'm, please correct me if I'm speaking out of turn on any of this, but like that can help streamline a lot of those processes of like getting streets closed, getting permits, getting everything done to make something like this happen. Plus, the Grand Prix has a very good structure as to how they're going to do the vast majority of it. So it's just hey, this is how they've done it. We're doing a microcosm of that in a shorter period of time. But we have a general sense of exactly what needs to happen.
There's no question that like the political, muscle that they have, and it's not strong muscle. It's just that they're an extremely influential group that has all the right people, a totally, ethical approach to doing events, respect of people across all political affiliations. That's one of the things that like I've kind of learned over the years. Long Beach is, arguably, I think it's probably the most diverse city in America from the population that exists here on a relative basis. And so, you get a lot of different kinds of political environments over time. There was a period of time where there was a huge eco kind of tourism thing going on. They have there's the Green Port. Right now, there is no better time that I can remember in the current leadership of Long Beach to be doing events here. The mayor in particular is an amazing guy that's very, very, kind of forward thinking on events by themselves. And, he's really put a stranglehold around the events pertaining to the Olympics. And so it helped a lot to have that, to get it going. And had we not had that, and not had those relationships, just in the same way that, the Drift Masters guys have a really tight relationship in Poland, being able to pull that event off, needing all the right components. I would say that there's probably, I don't know the exact, details of how that works and the relationships, but, being somewhat close to those guys and understanding the broad structure, there are some similarities there. Like having friends in high places does make a lot of sense. And, it's not a situation where, people are trying to put together deals for their own benefit. Like the Grand Prix really does want to see us succeed. And Jim McCallion and Dwight Tanaka, they love Formula Drift. They love drifting. And, that's been one of the main reasons for driving it forward to where we are.
That's fair. Yeah. I guess when you have people who are excited about the sport and want to continue to add to it, that just moves things around a lot quicker. Like you're not having to convince, right? It's not like we're showing up to whatever, pick a city, streets of Detroit or something like that, and being like, okay, hey, you don't really know us. Hey, we haven't really done a lot of stuff together. You might have heard of us. Let me convince you first that this is a good idea, and then convince you that we need 100 different permits and the police on board and ambulances on board and, whatever community committees are together on board. Like this is one of those, hey, you already know us. You already like us. You like what we do. We want to support you. Here's all the paperwork. Just let's line it up, sign it, and let's get this thing going.
I went to we sponsored a local event here at a restaurant in downtown Long Beach that was promoted by a wonderful woman called Tasha Day, who is kind of a director of special events. And she's always, you would recognize her. You've probably seen her a million times and just not realized it. They put together an event for all the new events that were coming into Long Beach.
Cool.
And it was, the reunion of Golden Voice and Insomniac. If you follow, kind of like the more EDM and larger concert festival type events. Yeah. And, bringing back some really, really cool musical festivals into the city of Long Beach and us. And so the mayor was there and was talking about how, like pro event he is, and gave this really great speech. And then they talked about each of the individual organizations. It was amazing to see what happened after that. So many of the local businesses came up and said, hey, we'd love to get involved with you guys. We really, we really like Formula Drift. We ended up having our, we partnered with a coffee shop, a small business, privately owned coffee shop that I think they have 3 locations here and a few more outside of the city of Long Beach that wanted to do drink specials that were based around drifting. You may have even seen some of them on social that Tio's put together. Barcode with ticket scan. We gave them a bunch of free Friday tickets. That's the kind of stuff that moves the needle the direction you need to have a really impactful event. And that's the kind of stuff that you get by having that relationship here and just kind of paying your dues over time.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I can attest that I would say Long Beach this year, I probably dropped $80, $90 on coffee alone. So, I'm trying to do my part to keep local businesses alive during that time. So, but for those businesses, any influx in tourism, whether it be local or money from outside of the area, is always wanted, right? I'm sure there's still frustration with infrastructure of shutting down streets and things like that, but it's one of those trade-offs for running an event. It's busy. It's that means there's people here. That means there's commerce here. There's positive things going on. Some of the trade-off is that it's going to be crowded because people want to be here.
You get that. I mean, and you get hey, you guys are firing up at 120 dBs at 7 a.m. in the morning type stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit of a joke because the people that live, especially in that rounded tower and those adjacent complexes there, they move there knowing that the premier, thing that happens in Long Beach every year is the Grand Prix. And like for 3 days, you're basically getting your ears blown out. So they're mostly really, really cool people. It would be a very shady like real estate broker to like move your grandma into one of those and say, there is one weekend where it gets quite loud here, Granny. You may want to consider, closing the blinds and putting in some earplugs. Most of the people are dope.
There's like a cottage industry to that though. Like if you go on Airbnb, that weekend they'll advertise it as like, 20th floor front row seats to FD Long Beach. Like it's got its own thing. Cause I know a few photography and videography people will contact people in that building to be like, yo, can I get on your balcony and just get a couple of shots? So, and obviously you've got drones buzzing by and everything else going on. So it's neat. I grew up in a tourist town. So like, we went from, say 15 to 18,000 people in the winter to like 200,000 in the summer, like complete changeover. And it's frustrating in some ways being a local, but then you're like, listen, the reason why shops can close at like 5 every day in the middle of February and still be able to keep a business operating is because for 4 or 5 months of the year, they're open every single hour they can. And there's hundreds of people coming in and out. Well,
funny and ironic is I was actually contacted by Sam, probably the very first kind of drifting centric podcast with Paco.
Maximum
Driftcast guys. To come out to the event. I was so excited to hear from him because he's kind of gone into drifting obscurity a little bit and been doing his own thing. And he was talking about wanting to try to come out. The last time that I think that he was out here in a working capacity, we had something going on with them. They had rented this really awesome loft on Airbnb, like right across the street, actually just right in front of Linden. That was like all this really cool brick, flat, loft style, like New York City.
Had like an arcade room up top, didn't it?
I don't remember. I didn't go upstairs. I mean, I forget even what I was doing there, but I remember just being like, dang, it's pretty dope to like lived in downtown Long Beach. Like there's some sick spots here. And like all the video and photo guys were using those kind of locations.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's funny you bring that up is because I finally had Corey on the podcast and that was the last person of Maximum Driftcast that I needed to have in my podcast collection to kind of have them all. So it was, I told him that too. Cause I'm like, this may not mean a lot to you, but to me, this podcast in a lot of ways like was spurred on from my old show, which was inspired by theirs. So I was like, Corey, you're the last one. I had Brian on, I had Sam, I had Paco on. So it was kind of neat that all came up. But yeah, if Sam's coming, I'm very, very excited. I tried to
hopefully I didn't mess up something for him or whatever. And, some, nasty ex-girlfriend or somebody that doesn't like him is going to try to see him.
I'll text him just real quick and be like, hey, is it cool that it's very public knowledge you're going to be there? So, so moving, let's go past all the fun paperwork and permitting and standing in front of groups of people to convince them this is a good idea. You get the go ahead from the city of Long Beach and whoever else. What happens then? Like what's kind of the next steps in planning after you're kind of like, oh, we're doing this, like this, it's approved, we can make this happen?
So, I mean, we turned up the gas immediately following Irwindale, knowing that we had just made our schedule announcement and we had included Irwindale. And so, we were going to have to effectively go to a TBD, and we did. But then we started, having these kind of parallel conversations with all of the parties that we just spoke about, how do we confirm this and then start planning for it? Because what we don't want to have happen is we go in, we take a big bite and realize we can't swallow it and it hurts the business in some way. We mess something up really bad. We need to know what we're kind of dealing with here. And so I would say the period from SEMA to the first of the year was about determining that. And then we were kind of like, how do we announce? And, we could have just like said, hey, this is what the announcement is, put out a video, would have been, fine. But, we're doing something kind of unique here. We're doing something that is more akin to maybe like the way Supercross does Anaheim 1, Anaheim 2, used to do Anaheim 3, except for we're doing it in bookends, and we're doing it with completely different course configurations and a lot of the same venue, but not the entirely. It will look like a completely new venue unless you have a drone that goes up and you could see, the ocean behind you or the buildings. Like those things are iconic. You can't take that out, nor would you want to. But it will look nothing like the other track at all. There's one section that connects, which is the Shoreline part and approaching turn 11. It's in the opposite direction. It's got a slightly, I think, better radius. There's some grandstands that look like they're in a similar spot. There's going to be a paddock that kind of functions, but there won't be any of the Grand Prix stuff around. So there's no bridges. There's no bridge to get in. The entrance is as the Long Beach Convention Center is right now. And with our own modifications and things that, it's hard to work around the Grand Prix infrastructure because you essentially really can't step on what they're doing. And they're super accommodating. That's where that walkover bridge came from, is like, that was an accommodation they made for us to say, look, we don't really like closing the gate so that your cars can drive by for practice while people are coming in. Why don't we build, a bridge that will go over, and then that way you guys could run consistently. Totally game changer in terms of like flow of going from point A to point B. If you're a driver practicing, whatever else, it's just total efficiency. All that stuff is gone. So it will look completely fresh and hopefully new. And hopefully, we walk away from it saying we made a great decision and, that this could be the new House of Drift.
Yeah, that's such a tough part about this whole thing, is that it's not like we're just changing tracks, like we're changing the track, right? Like it's without naming names, like if other tracks disappear, it's like, oh, that sucks. And you kind of move on. Like we are replacing the place that started the series in a lot of ways. So I think that's the heaviest weight with a lot of this, is like, how do you replicate what Irwindale was without replicating Irwindale? Like it's the finals. So you've got to have big crowds. You've got to have that, right? So that location's got to be mint. It's got to be in a massive metropolitan area. It's got to be something that's spectacular, because Irwindale it was like grandiose, and it's got to be kind of relentless and brutal on the drivers and the cars. Because like having just like an open, if you miss a corner, you just kind of run off into the grass, like that's great, but it doesn't have the same level of commitment that's needed for a round 8 when the cars are beat up, the drivers are tired, the crews are, this is their last event, they just got to get through it. Like there's something about all of those elements that add up, and then you layer on the history and heritage on top of that. And that's like, to me, that's why Irwindale was amazing. And this is as close to that. The only thing we don't have is the history, but we kind of get a taste of it because we're back at Long Beach. So like it has every ingredient that we need to be a great final round. It's just like, it's kind of a new recipe.
Let me give you a quick personal anecdote, and then I'll tell you like how I've thought about that. Before my mom retired, she was a teacher. She was a tenured professor, but then she really loved also having a job teaching at the local junior high. And she would have me come in every year for like 2 or 3 years in a row and do like the career day thing. Oh, cool. And, I'd come in and like, being somewhat of a like odd person, I would, prepare PowerPoint and like use some of the like language that we use and we present, to people about the sport. And, I kind of try to, caress that and make it more kid friendly over time. But I realize like the action kind of really speaks for itself. And then, I basically just say, hey, we put these on together and we do like what NASCAR is for, this sport and blah, blah, blah. And, all the kids are really excited. They, especially the young boys, they love cars and they love going fast and they love, loud noises, and it's super compelling to them. And they're like, the main question that I would always get is, how do I get into doing that? And, at the beginning, I used to answer that question just by saying, this is how you could do it. I started getting a little bit more cynical towards the end, and I started saying, I don't recommend that you do this.
Right.
Because this is a dumb business to be in. It is so hard to get it right, or even get close to getting it right. You will be inundated with lots of stress all the time. There will be more no's than yeses. And it will be the type of thing that you'll sit back and say, you know what, if I just learned how to trade equities a little bit better, I could have actually made more money in my career, and I could have spent more time at home with my family and done a lot of other things. Now, obviously, I'm being a little bit facetious here, but that is what events are in general. They're super high risk. The reward can be low financially, but it's not about that. It's about kind of like what has attracted you to the sport in the first place, and what you're passionate about. And when you're passionate about something and you love something, particularly for what the motivations are for me, you're going to do things that are irrational. You're going to do things that are against your best interest, because this is the thing that you feel like you were born to do, or that you love to do so much you can't give it up. That approach in thinking about how do you replace Irwindale, and thinking about doing something as hardcore as this by ourselves, was part of the way that I kind of structured the logic of my thinking in how do you find a replacement for Irwindale. And the bottom line is you can't. There is no replacement. However, if all of the attributes that you said in your previous statement kind of get brought into the fold, the other part that I thought about quite a bit was, yes, you need to have the crowds, you need to have the kind of the environment, you need to have something that can be memorable, you need the back shots, and you need the wides, and you need all these really cool things that are going to become iconic. But ultimately for me, Irwindale is where the sport took off. Long Beach is where Formula Drift is from. And so it feels fitting to start and end at the same place if some of these minimal conditions could be met in terms of, track quality, build, cost, all that kind of stuff. And, for sure, 100%, the thing that leads me to say don't do it to those kids is the fact that we're going to get stuff wrong, and we're going to walk away from this being like, that wasn't right. We could do it this way better. We made a mistake here. We could tweak this and fix this over here, and this could be cooler. But the concept itself will be functional, and it will be hopefully awesome, and it will create that environment that we need. And you have to think like Irwindale is a night event, and we love night events. It just creates a different ambiance. This first year is a daytime event, so there is more to potentially come should this be successful. And we've done something kind of like that, with the Grand Prix on their weekend. But you can imagine where it could go to if it works out.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I think, like, looking at the actual layout and everything else, this layout would be more conducive to a nighttime event if everything comes together. But I think doing that right off the bat, one, would be just more difficult because everything is more difficult at night. even if it's just operating an event, because it's like you can't see as much. Like no matter how much lighting you have, it's never going to be as bright as it is in daytime. So like I tend to agree with that, although I do think that would be incredible. So maybe that's a small teaser or preview for what could potentially happen.
I know what my limits are.
Yeah.
I think we've all found them over the past, 3 to 6 months, and we have walked gleefully on one day and painfully in other days, well past those limits.
Yeah.
And, the dynamics of this, I can't even tell you, how different it has been to close out the year in this way. I mean, the last 3 months for me have basically just been pure torture from a work and all the things going on perspective. Like we decided to do the largest event that we have, the hardest event we've ever done in the history of the sport for the last event. We also are, recontracting every single venue, fresh start.
Right.
Never done that before. We're renewing our FD Japan license. We're moving offices, and I could add to a litany of other things that, that have been going on where I feel like I'm kind of not all there sometimes.
No, I think anybody that's had, especially if you work in a capacity that's like, let's say 80% mental, where, physically you may not be doing a lot of work. There is a feeling you get after a very, very long mental workload day that your brain is just jello. Like it's the only way to put it. And it's like the moment you can stop thinking about work, or at least reduce that. And then you have that moment of like freedom, whether it's a drive home or something like that. And you walk in the door and you're like, I don't know if I can untie my own shoes. Like I'm going to have to actually think about, how do I untie this knot? Because every bit of capacity that I've had as a human being has been completely worn down at this point. So I get it. I spent several years in that place.
I know you have. And I know we've talked about this kind of stuff before. I had to just kind of remind myself yesterday, actually, like on a call with my boss, like, you know what? I just have to reflect for a second, take a deep breath, realize, I have a beautiful young daughter. I'm currently healthy. I am able to do the things that I want to do in my life and pursue the things that I want to go after. I should be incredibly grateful. And it's not about being afraid of hard work. It's nothing like that. It's the mental torture of the thing that you just said that occurs when these high brain power, output things start stacking on top of each other.
Yeah.
And you're trying to solve one problem while another problem erupts, and it might be related to it. It might not be related. And you're just constantly chasing these fires that happen. And, it could affect, planning that is 3 months down the road. And it's been like that. But, the event itself is tracking so well, like it's coming together in a way that I think is at least above my current expectations. I mean, we are, getting to the end of those deadlines and starting new things, way past the start point. But, we're gonna build it. It's gonna be finished. We're all excited about it. There's the newness feeling of like closing the season somewhere else besides Irwindale is also kind of a new, fascinating feeling. Like I always would remember driving up to 605 to go to Irwindale and getting off and making that turn, and like your brain becomes conditioned to do that, and just knowing that feeling of what it's like. And I'm not going to do that anymore. It's going to be a totally different thing. And there's something kind of uniquely curious about that that I'm interested in experiencing.
There is like a ritualistic thing. I've at least, obviously I haven't been within the sport as long, but like even thinking about where the same hotel we're at the beginning of the year. And there is something about like that cool, crisp, 6:30 in the morning, walk at those front doors, walk along the ponds, get, flash security, who are like, just check, they're just clocking in. They clock in at like 6, fresh coffee. Like there's something about that feeling that I'll get again, but different, because now it'll be autumn. It'll be different people I'm looking at. I won't be walking the same path. Like, I know what you mean, but like every event has that same thing, right? Like the drive from the hotel, because we traditionally stay in either the same hotel or close to, you end up eating at the same places. You see the same waitress. You know, there is a ritual to each event. And every time that ritual changes, you're like, oh, it's exciting, because you're like, well, where are we going to eat now? Where are we going to stay now? Who's my strange rental car guy that I'm going to run into at this place? Right. But this will have a flair of both, where it's like, I know this hotel, I know the walk, but instead of me going left around the ponds, I can basically walk straight out into hot pits, which is kind of cool, where it's just going to be like, walk out the front and like coffee in hand, jacket on. And I'm like, damn, they're setting up cars. Like, I think that is also just going to be super sick.
It is. I'm looking forward to it as well. I certainly will not be upset when it's all over. But it's weird because my favorite part of the year is between April and October.
Right.
And my least favorite part of the year is, the other months. Because I love the being at event feeling. I love the like experience of that. And the travel stories and the early flights and the laughs and the jokes and the, making fun of Andy and Andy making fun of us. And, what's the gossip of the day from the driver's meeting and, all that kind of stuff. And like, from November to March is kind of, there's a silly season, which is fun from a fan perspective. But like, I'm here. I'm sitting in this office, and that's not what I signed up for really, but it's kind of a necessary part of the thing. So,
yeah, no, I totally get it. I'm about to get the seasonal depression coming up when that event's over, because I was like going through my calendar. It was like 100 and something days I was gone this year, and like,
wow, you hit triple digits, huh?
I did. I hit triple digits this year. I guess. I don't know how much of a badge it
go
is,
either
but
way.
yeah, I was like having the conversation with my wife, and she's like, you're like home until March, and I'm like, that is a solid point. I'm like, I'm gonna need someone to check in on me in February just to see, like how this is all going. But I'm excited for it. But I agree, it's like the adventure, everything else is what we sign up for in this job.
I mean, you see it like there are some people that feel like they're outliers for sure. It attracts a certain kind of person.
Yes. Yeah.
It
keeps a certain type of person. It attracts a lot of people.
That's true.
But it's the 3 years, I would say, is the threshold that like people are excited on the first, to get a little worn down on the second, and the third is make or break. If you make it past that third year, it seems like you're locked in, you're here for a long time. You just jump teams, but there's a lot of people that kind of come in and like after the third year, they just disappear.
Dude, so yesterday, I'm at my house, and like my wife is a, and I am too. I can't pretend like I'm hiding behind what she likes, but, Halloween is a big thing for us, right? Like, I'm wearing that today, right? Like, I got my this dude's socks on. I could show you my underwear. Maybe I will.
Okay, here we go. Dude, you're like decked out. All right, matching shirt too.
And so it's like a big deal for us, and I've had to kind of like be a little bit selective about how we're going to set up the house this year in terms of the time that I can spend on it, just because of all this, right? Like usually at Irwindale, I can manage it and do things, after work on the weekends. It's kind of okay. I'm sitting there and like, I'm not in the greatest, mental space at the moment. I'm stewing on something, it's like 8 o'clock at night, and I'm trying to get stuff up and set up lights and do all this, whatever. And this Amazon guy rolls up, and it's just like this cool looking kid with like this fluffy hair and really big smile on his face. He's like, hey man, hey, you got any Formula Drift stickers? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, I drive by here every day. I mean, I see your car, it's got Formula Drift on it. and your truck has Formula Drift on it. He's like, I didn't know, like you have like some stickers or something. and that just made my day.
Yeah.
That just took it over for me, where after that, everything was fine. And so I go inside, I had a few things there. I gave him my card and said, hey, you know, if you like want a package or something, let me know. I'll send something out to you. And, you know, that right there is from all of this. And those are the things that make all of it worth it. They're actually the things that I want, not the recognition, but the fact that it had an emotional impact on somebody in some way.
Yeah.
And
someone wanted to go out of their way to discuss that thing with you.
They wanted to take that sticker, peel it off, and put it on their property. And that's always been a meaningful thing for me. Even though it's not my name, you know, it's just the thing that we made up. It's a really cool feeling.
Yeah, no, that's good. It can definitely be those little things that get you through, especially like a long slog. I mean, I will say the kind of the benefit with the way the scheduling worked out this year is like there's a fairly good break between Utah and
the September
Shoreline
break is pretty cool.
which is I think one for your team and everybody involved with the final round, like that's great.
We needed it.
Yeah, 100%. Like it felt like a tight season. And then having this break now, speaking with a lot of drivers during that time, they're like, this is kind of nice. Like the car's prepped, it's done. Like we've got a full week, which never happens. Like very rarely do you speak to a driver and they're like, yeah, car's like sitting in the trailer, ready to go. Everything's loaded. We're locked.
There's another one of those next year. Just a small tease. Yeah, there's another one of those next year. It's not September.
No.
Yeah, I kind of wish it was because I really liked this, but you know, we had to do a lot of with the schedule and the constraints that we were in for 26.
If it's the same general schedule that I'd seen, I think it's like more mid-season as opposed to at the very end.
It's got like a mid-season break, like a summer break, like F1 or something like that.
Which I'm all right with. I'll take a break anytime, but. Sorry, back to the, now that our therapy session is all set, which I never mind. I mean, that's usually our ritual on the way to the track every morning. So, getting into, you know, like the track development side of things, obviously first render comes out. That's just like hey, this is giving you guys a general idea of what we want to do. Come in on Shoreline. We want this big snaking, you know, reducing radius, kind of shooting into the crowd type of look. Then a decision is made to be like, hey, why don't we render this? Why don't we like get somebody to design this professionally and see what this looks like before we ever put a block on the ground? So can you run me through maybe those conversations or how that all came to be? Because that's very different than anything we've done previously.
Okay, well, there was a 2D rendering that was like, here's a track map. I think that went around. It may not have even gone out to the public. It may have just been.
I don't think it did.
To teams. There was a 3D rendering that we did off of the basis of that and off of like some really rough measurements from Google Maps that we announced at Long Beach 1. But then we got to the point where, you know, all of the drivers have become totally accustomed to the fact that all of the courses that we have, if you know the general outline, you can get in the ballpark of where zones are and things like that. And you can, you know, essentially design a course on Assetto. And there are many people out there that, you know, have course designs that are pretty damn close to what we do in reality. But this was the one where we actually took the inch by inch measurements and then put that into, you know, the hopper to create a rendering that could be used by fans, by drivers or whatever, to experience what it would be like to be on that track. And at the same time, you know, have the general Long Beach environment. So, you know, we provided, Kevin provided basically the most detailed map that we have. And you know, Kevin, like everything that we do from a operational track perspective, from the length of the cones to the space between cones on chicanes to how wide lanes are, there, all other things being equal, they're going to be the same. On run-ups, there's going to be a general philosophy about like too long of a run-up is going to create a separation. You want to have a run-up where drivers are going full throttle from the beginning, and they're basically reaching a point to where both cars are going at it 100% to the point of initiation. And so that's kind of why you see like Salt Lake City got a little bit closer, even though the triple digits were happening further back. It was doing these things where guys were going so fast and then pulling off to make the corner, or pulling off for other reasons that, you know, it was causing some issues. And so while that was really, really exciting, we have tons of data on how the track outlines are. And that's what went into that final rendering that I think went out maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And it I think shows a little bit. I mean, one, it's, if you were to overlay all three of those different track maps, they are different. And I think that is a really good thing, because it shows that like there's, hey, this is what we're thinking. Hey, this is what it could look like. And then render 3 then becomes, hey, this is what it's going to look like. This is pretty much locked in. I did have a chance to chat with Kevin a little bit today about it. And he goes, no, this is it. Like, this is, that render was so close. That track map is so close. We don't need to adjust much. There might be a few things here or there, but like all things considered, that what you see there is more than likely what you're going to see when this goes live.
And there's even other benefits to it. You know, one of the primary benefits is like, as drivers and people get to experience the track, you know, in the sim, they actually can give you feedback on it, because, you know, most people that I've spoken to find that there is a strong correlation between the sim driving and not necessarily the exact feel, but the way that it will apply to the reality of the driving. And so you can see this corner is too tight. This radius is not correct. There's an off camber situation here, blah, 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 blah. Having that feedback was going to be incredibly important, because, you know, even though it's not like things are set in stone by anybody other than us. We have a structure baseline. You know, we're laying K-rail. Yes, those things shouldn't move after we lay them down. And yes, when we paint, we're not going to change it. But up until that point, we could give feedback, receive information, and make adjustments. I think everything I've heard is very, very promising in terms of like the flow, and what we hope comes out of it is, you know, this closeness and tandem, to make it really, really exciting. But that's a kind of an odd, weird benefit of this new world that we live in the sim world, where we can do those kind of things. And then at the same time, you have all the fans being able to experience it, or those that do, you know, sim driving, and get that other kind of like third perspective, which is cool.
Yeah, and even the fans that don't sim drive, like just consuming the content. Like, I've been watching videos all week of like different people putting edits together. People are already building tutorials of like, hey, this is how you run Shoreline. Like, this is this is what you want to do at the run up. This is how you're going to enter. You know, here are some spots to look out for, because like from my viewership of it, it is not, and I haven't driven it on. Actually, that's not true. I drove an early version of this map month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago. That's like a version.
Early version of yes. What we provide. Okay.
Yeah. I listen, I got my hookups too.
Yeah, I know you're an insider, dude.
It's not easy. It is good. It flows well, but it is not an easy track. Like, it's not something, at least in my opinion, and I'm sure a couple of pro drivers will correct me later on, but like, it's not something like in New Jersey or in Orlando where you're kind of like, here's a couple of zones, you just set the car up, you go through the zones. It's just about being perfect. Like, you do have changes in radius within the corners. You have zones that you have to extend and push through. Like, it is going to require every single tool the driver has to get through that track and make it look good, which I think is phenomenal. And it's very similar to what we saw, especially in like extended versions of Irwindale, you know, where we had kind of like that final turnout that kicked to the right and stuff like that. Cause like that track, you had to use everything. You had to be able to run a bank. You had to do an inside clip, very fast transition, and you had to line up. You had to basically go full speed at a wall and be able to catch yourself at the perfect moment, which is kind of, the hardest parts of drifting.
I mean, you're touching on a super interesting topic in the world of like how to approach what tracks you have available to you philosophically. Like Orlando is a set it and forget it, but it is so exciting. And New Jersey is kind of a set it and forget it, but it's so exciting. And it's also got this other element to it. Now, a lot of people, they poo-poo on the, kind of some of the figure eight configurations or whatever, but people will always talk about in the history of the sport, these really amazing close battles that have come out of those particular tracks because yes, they are easier to drive. They accentuate, this proximity aspect of drifting, which I think is kind of essential to it. On the other hand, there are hard tracks, right? And hard tracks often are perceived as like the cooler tracks. And maybe they are cooler. But they're also the ones that are like they are the ones that are the most painful for us to have to deal with because there are so many other things that could go wrong. I mean, Road Atlanta is the classic example, like beautiful track, elevation changes, blah, blah. I don't need to describe it. Everybody that's watching this knows Road Atlanta. There is no other event besides Road Atlanta that is more contentious and has a history of weird, unbelievable, crazy things happening that make you think about the question. The easier ones are the more exciting ones, and the harder ones are the more controversial ones. Maybe it's okay to have a balance of those, but you can't have all of one category.
I very much agree. I think you look at something like what IndyCar does, where they have a split between an oval and a road course, and you get both of those things, right? Because you're looking at different ways of winning depending on driving style between teams. Like on a track that is very simple, it is so true that anybody can win. Anybody can become a superstar.
Yeah, that's key.
We'll always go back to Jonathan Castro. Like, he was around for a long time. He always had really decent results, but like never touched greatness until that night. And then it was like, oh wow, like this dude came to hang. I would argue, Brandon Sorensen, Connor Shanahan, to me, like going back and comparing in their one more time battle, to me is the greatest representation of tandem driving we have in FD. I do
definitely
think
like top three.
Yeah, I would argue to say it does supersede the Castro James Dean battle, and the only reason we may argue it doesn't is purely out of nostalgia. That's just me because I've watched both side by side now.
I don't know that I would argue that. I think Jared thinks I would because he was trying to protect himself from the tears that he thought that I had when it was really that he was the one that was crying. But
I think we were all crying. I'm willing to throw myself under that bus, but I think those events provide that opportunity. But an event with like a lot of transitions, like we're going to end up seeing with Shoreline, is going to offer a lot of those like crazy moments that we're seeing out of like Connor and Jack and Manoa, like these young foreign drivers. They're doing something in the sport now, which is the next thing, which is like transitions are perfect, right? We saw for a long time with it where drivers would pull back, let the car settle, and then dive in. And that was the standard way to transition. And now that's not the case. And we're seeing guys like Odie, like really mastering this skill. He's kind of like, you can tell he's been practicing and working on that stuff. Matt Field's gotten a lot better at it. Osbo's gotten a lot better at it. And like, they were always good at it. But after seeing what these other drivers have been able to pull out, it's just been a game changer. And I think with Shoreline, knock on wood, hopefully everything goes well. What we will see is that will become the next thing we talk about. And we're already talking about it. How good are you at spelling? Do you think you could spell? What does this say? What do these letters combined make? PODCAST 25. Podcast 25. You know what that spells? 20% savings. Crazy, right? Podcast 25 at checkout for the FD store. Now, you can't just yell it. You can't just go to the event, go to the booth and start screaming podcast 25 at them. Don't do that. Please don't do that. It would be kind of funny, but don't do it because it won't work. Discount codes don't work that way. You got to go to the store online, check it out, grab some FD merch, You got one shot at this too. I don't know if I explained this earlier, but this is the time. Build a big cart. Use the code because it's 20% off. The way percentages work, the more you buy, the more you save. Very simple.
Well, I mean, just to put a little bit more meat on those bones, another thing that I think, is a variable in a lot of this kind of thinking. And one of the things that we don't necessarily share with, say tracks in other parts of the world, particularly like Europe, for example, is, we have a few of these tracks where there is this thing that happens. That's what's that musical machine that you do this accordion?
Yeah.
Where the accordion effect happens multiple times throughout the course layout. So you go fast to slow to medium to slow, fast to slow, or some combination. And as opposed to it being more linear, you can still have variations in speed, but they're not as abrupt, right? Mm-hmm. And the abruptness is where you get contact and you get all this crazy stuff. This course feels like it has a smoothness to it and enough turns to it that it's going to provide the skill aspect that we think is exciting, but also the attribute needed to promote the kind of drifting that is closely related to the thing that is really the fundamental thing of what we do, which is proximity and being able to manage that effectively. And, at hard tracks where you have that accordion effect, huge amount of skill that's required in doing that because you have to get into the driver's mind, have a lot of data, understand what he's going to do, anticipate the move ahead of time. On tracks where you don't necessarily have that, but it's simple. Who's going to make the first mistake? What gap is going to be established? On this one, the driving itself, I think, can be an element that will, give drivers victories that in other situations may not have been the case. And you pointed to Irwindale with the extra turn. It's so crazy to say that that this course, in fact, kind of has like more turns than Irwindale and many of the courses that we go to. And we're not as worried about tire wear because that whole, we kept clawing back from Irwindale year by year. Right. Because people can set less grip in the car, obviously, and get more out of the tires, but they don't want to, right? You want to maximize the grip. And so they're looking to get to that last little bit on the conclusion of the second lap that the traction of the car remains somewhat consistent, right? And if you ask them for more than that, do another 200 yards or whatever it is of turns, you're going to get some pushback on that. This, we haven't had that because it has those two kind of properties together at the same time, where you've got consistency, the surface is really good quality as well. And it has enough turns to where the variables, I think, are going to be extracted out of the skill of the driver, which for no data for anybody is actually super compelling, at least in year one.
Yeah, I agree. And it is much more of an even playing field because it is so new. It will reward drivers that jump on the sim a little bit earlier and get those laps in. Something that I kind of had seen just with the layout, and then looking back over, funny enough, like old video footage, and then confirming it with Kevin today, is that we do have multiple surfaces, which is, in my opinion, like some of the best stuff. I always like multiple surfaces when it comes to drifting because it just makes it harder. Anything to make it more difficult on these drivers, to me, makes for a better show. It gives us as commentators something more to talk about. It gives fans something to look at. And I really think that track evolution, which is something we kind of talk about in drifting, but not as much as other forms of racing. But I think with this particular layout, coming off of Shoreline, coming through bits that were paved, a very small section that was paved for Indy, and then into a parking lot section, which is never seen rubber put down. It is literally a spot that, if I can quote Kevin, people use to park to wait for the ferry or cruise ships. That's all it's ever seen. So I think what we'll end up seeing is track evolution like we've never seen before, because this is asphalt that has never had this much rubber put into it.
Yeah,
so it's going to be super interesting.
There's experts, obviously, and people that are much more well informed than I am about the types of surfaces that are used on different streets and patching and asphalt, blacktop. What is going to hold up, what is going to become rougher over time. That area is such a unique area because if you drive down Shoreline, and anybody can do this, the way that they've basically designed that is for the water runoff to go in a direct linear fashion. And so you have these kind of like, they're not rivets, but they're like deeper lines that connect each of the parts of the roadway that are more akin to a highway than they are to a side street that has just been repaved with blacktop. That's what's on the inside, kind of, right? Because you have the Kevin variable there. So I like that too. I think that's super fun. I will, be forever proud that we will have marks there, and I'll try to see if we can just not pay to have it restriped and keep it there for as long as possible so we can get satellite shots. But it is one of the things about this that most people will not talk about. But if you're kind of in the nerd realm, and no offense to nerds, I think I am one too in a certain respect. That is a really cool feature of this. It's a variable that we don't normally see.
No, and as we are now constantly fighting for more grip, like we're down to like such the smallest amount of minutia to get these cars to go faster or to get them to do the things that we want them to do. And that leads to every variable becoming so much more profound. So I use F1 as an example because I really do think it is the pinnacle of motorsport, and like what is happening there is such a good representation of what ends up trickling down to other motorsports. Look at carbon fiber, right? Something that started in F1 is now pretty commonplace in what we do, like very commonplace. So hearing them talk about track evolution, seeing that on an actual timing chart and understanding car setup based on that evolution, it's like I've had conversations with crew chiefs and mechanics where they're like, as temps drop, we have to make these changes as the track gets rubbered in. Even you talk to drivers who drive media day and what media day is like in Long Beach versus, top 8, they're like, this is a very different track. So having something that is this new will be really, really cool to understand. And it could also be just torturous because those first few laps that people put down, it might be very greasy out there. We might see some cars bin pretty early, and tying that with, obviously we don't know exactly what all the wall placement's going to be like until it's up, but have a good idea. Like it's not forgiving at all. There's only a couple of very, very small spots for runoffs. So like this is 100% commitment layout on something that's had almost no rubber, with cars that are pretty worn out. So
and I'm sure
it's a good storm.
I'm sure that a lot of, many people or most, maybe all, have seen, the rendering and some of the, kind of, fanciful imagery that, we've put into it. You just have to imagine if you haven't, like literally driving the course in reverse for a certain part of it. As fast as you can from Pryor to Linden, and then basically making a left where you would be making a right, and having a radius that works well. But there was one of the biggest questions that we had to kind of figure out. And once we kind of felt a little bit more comfortable about it, and that it could work, we kind of realized, wow, this is actually kind of a little bit hardcore. There's going to be a separator factor here. The thing that you said about the teams, I love that. I think one of my favorite things is to watch them in action, especially those guys that do keep great data logs and know that, like, okay, at a track that we've gone to for the past 10 years or whatever, my variables are the weather that's in the area, the system for the weekend, and whether or not that has an impact. And if I'm on this tire last year, 3 years ago, or whatever, how does that perform, and all the different things that can occur depending on how far you make it in competition. When practice is trying to line up and how much time you spend on doing that, you're going to see this like immediate in that 4.5 hours of practice that we have before the first part of competition. That is going to be all the fun behind the scenes stuff that those guys are going to go try and find out what's going on with the cars in those instances, where they need to make improvements and changes. And I'm going to, surmise that the most amount of activity of balancing and tuning and adjusting the car to get it to be compliant for the track off of their foundational kind of starting points is going to be something that we haven't really seen in a long time. For everything that you just said, including the pavement changes, I can't think of a new track that has as many of those elements involved in it. And that behind the scenes stuff, I think, is going to be really fun.
Yeah. It's just one more thing to kind of get excited about. Like, I don't know. I to me, like, one of the most exciting parts of any weekend is the first practice. And like, I mean, this, like, I mean, if the track is hot, there's a solid chance I'm sitting in the booth watching, because it's like that first practice, you can tell 9 times out of 10 who's going to be at least in the top 8, if not Final 4. You watch that practice and you go, they've got this locked. They've got this completely sorted. Unless something weird happens, you're going to see this driver in the top 8, if not Final 4. And it's, we can point to the times I've gotten it right, because those are much more memorable than every time I've gotten it wrong. But like, there have been times last year, Beecham in Utah, I just saw him and like second lap out, I'm like, oh, he's locked. He's nailing everything. He's on par with the best drivers we have out here. And this is good. I mean, there's just been a few of those situations. That's like maybe the most notable one. But for fans and everything else, like, and for crews and teams, like that's the practice that you can kind of tell what your weekend's going to go like. And having everybody without data other than what can be developed in sim, which is like, let's say 85-90% of real life, that to me is going to be fascinating, because I do know the drivers that are hard in the sim right now. I know who's putting in the laps, who's putting in the time, and I know the ones that aren't. And I'm very fascinated to see if there's going to be drivers that traditionally don't do all that well that are going to come in and do incredibly well or surprisingly well, simply because they are hardcore sim drivers that now have an advantage that they've never had in their career.
But besides personal curiosity here, besides the ones that are well known for doing it, how do you know the ones that are doing it and the ones that are not? Like, is that, I'm just curious about how you research that.
Yeah. So, I mean, drivers that post up on social media. Two, there are servers that, like, once you know certain drivers, like gamer tags and things like that, you'll see them in it. I can't give up. There's one that, like, I can't give up because it's just like, I can tell you after, it's like private information, but like there are ways of understanding who's online, who's doing what, how much time they're putting in. And I do think that there's a couple of drivers that do really, really well normally, because they have legacy amounts of notes and setup and the car's going to be ready to go, that are going to struggle. They might still do decent, but I do think they're going to struggle. And I think there's two in particular that traditionally don't do all that well that are going to come out swinging and probably surprise us, simply because they put in a ton of time on this sim. So
you're basically, this is another scene that you've penetrated into the deep quarters and like, all the realms, and the realms are accessible to you. And so like you know from conversation, from probably, discussions that you've had, but you also are basically like, you're in that space.
Yeah, and like more on an observer side, like admittedly, I don't have a rig at my house, but I have access to all the exact same software. So I can pop in, if I'm working at 10 o'clock at night on something, I can pop in and look at like, oh, he's in the server, he's in the server, he's in the server. Okay, cool. And then like I wrap up at midnight, I'm like, dude's still in the server. Like he's still driving this map. Like, okay, that's interesting. So there's two that I've seen in particular that are putting a lot of time in. that I'm like, okay, I don't want to blow up a spot. I don't want to
No.
whatever. I don't want to change any odds or anything, but like, I'll tell you after the show, I'll write it down, put it in an envelope. I don't care. Cause I'm fascinated to see. And as long as there's no mechanical problems, I think these two drivers will do quite well. And I'm sure people at home that are like in the know are like, oh, it's this guy and this guy. And I'm like, yeah, probably. You'll probably get it right.
I really like that. Is there any reason to shroud who you are if you're doing these kind of things, or is there no reason to do that? Like, you can Max Verstappen it and just basically be known that you have this other life that's not professional racing, but it's totally related.
I don't think there's a reason to shroud it now. There may be in the future. Like, there's in the same way that like F1 testing, MotoGP, Indy testing is very shrouded. Like, they're testing, but there's no cameras, right? Like, there's a famous track in Canada that like teams would fly cars out to test it because it's in the middle of the woods. It's incredibly difficult to get to. There's no good vantage points to get in and do it. And like cars like the Ford GT were like developed there because like no one could get in.
Interesting.
And F1 teams maybe haven't used this track, but like, different teams that developed there. So I think at some point we'll get to that point where drivers may not want to openly be in public servers because they're trying different things, or they're trying setups on the car, or they're trying different ways to enter, or they're trying different like techniques and things like that. So I think that may become a thing at some point. But for right now, there's no, until it becomes like a strategic advantage, like why hide it, right? Like everybody used to share tire pressures until it became a strategic advantage, right? Everybody were like exchanging notes about like car setup. Even like wheel speed used to be like something a lot of teams would talk about. In the last 3 years, it's a little bit more shrouded than it used to be because like knowing the proper ratio of wheel speed is now pretty crucial to keeping really good grip in. And if you know wheel speed, there's a solid chance you can understand that. Like, I don't know how much the general fan gets into it, but like there is, with same thing, I won't blow up their spot. There is one guy from one team whose entire job, and you know who this is, entire job is to sit there in a lawn chair with a stopwatch and time every single driver's sector. Yeah. And when their team goes to drive, he tears off a little piece of paper and hands it to the spotter and goes, here's the sector times of the driver you're going against. That's something that's gone on for years.
Yeah, that's not new.
Exactly. But there's only one team that's doing that.
Yeah.
And that team is doing quite well. So it's like, there are all these things that like, as the sport gains more money, as teams are able to get into more of that stuff, as these things develop, we'll see more and more of that. There's a reason why videographers are banned at F1. You can only film in the pits, and that's because they were using high-speed video to tell suspension settings on cars. And they still do that now, but they just do incredibly fast shutter speed. Like that was my job with Riley, is I would shoot at high frame rates so they could go and dissect what the car was doing. And, if I got shots of other cars to figure out how they were operating, what's the problem with that?
I think, in closing the loop on that, and the question I asked you about, how do you know that? I am fascinated by these kind of like the market segmentation of certain things, and like we have two really nice sim rigs in our what used to be our conference room, and we got rid of that and made it a game room. Yeah, we kind of went a little bit rebellious after the other dad left. We haven't put,
that one got me.
We haven't put it back either. I'll tell you more about that later. About
so
our other rebellious things that we've done here recently with, stuff that we've brought in to make it more like Tom Hanks and Big. Oh my gosh. Okay. But I never used to go back there unless people weren't around doing it because, I haven't really been involved in sim until say maybe like the past couple of years, and definitely not avid. So if I ever went back there, I would just go back there by myself. And those two rigs take up a pretty good amount of space, so we had to move the ping pong table. But I went back there when all this development was going on, and I felt like I walked into a new world that I hadn't discovered yet.
Yeah.
And that was my kind of interest in asking you that question, because in learning about how that space works, very surface level, made me realize like how big of like a paradigm shift it is for the drivers. But in fact, it's this like whole other cool, fun, in some ways kind of goofy realm where, people go to do these really, really insanely cool things. I mean, obviously it's underlined in its most like magnificent sense in like what Max Verstappen does, right? Like the way that he goes out there and spends so much time on sim as a professional racer. I see those guys going back there, going nuts, going crazy, wild, having competitions, bets, all this kind of stuff. And then when I learned more about like the subculture, that really kind of drew me in.
I mean, last year in particular, I got like really, really deep into it just through some work and stuff that I was doing. So like I'd always kind of been around it. I had some very basic gear, but like in that last year, I got so thrust into that world that I was like, oh, wow. One, shame on me for being a drift fan and not getting that far into the culture of it, whether I sim drive or not, but just understanding how it operates, how maps are developed, how cars are developed, what different car packs are, et cetera, right? The potential market value of it is gigantic, but it very much feels like what I got into drifting for, which is the camaraderie, the grassroots, the weekends, the fun, the shit talk, like just going out and banging doors with your friends. There's so many of us that got into drifting specifically because of the friends that we built in drifting. And the sport itself is not getting any cheaper. There are some parts of it that are getting cheaper. The cost to get into it is still there, but like the builds have developed to the point where like it's very, very expensive. You can still do it cheap. Regardless, you can still spend $400 on Marketplace, play on an old PC. Your graphics are going to look like a potato, but you're still banging doors with your friends. And that to me has just opened up such a massive realm. And I really do think it revitalized the sport at a time when the bottom end of the sport was starting to die. Because sim drifting has been around for a really long time. Like it's been around a lot longer than any of us can really talk about. Even before Assetto Corsa, we can get into like guys were doing it back in the Need for Speed days and even like before that. Talk to Ryan Little about that, talk to James Dean about that, how they kind of started just doing it on controller and stuff. But it's in such a really unique space right now where anybody in FD could jump into a lobby with anybody in the world at any point in time. And you're still starstruck, but it's still an even playing field, right? You're still like, I'm in a lobby with whoever, right? Chris Forsberg for a name. And I can go drive with him and I'm just a dude at home that I have to bolt my Logitech, steering wheel to my desk every time I want to play. And it's on my old gaming laptop from college, but I'm still driving with Chris Forsberg.
Yeah.
That is the most beautiful part of sim drifting, at least to me. There's so many other incredible things, but like that even playing field is what makes it great. And we still get that in real life, but it's still less attainable. Like if you get approved, you can go drive at Grid Life and you can go do that with Chris Forsberg. But that still has such a massive threshold to surpass, right? So
it does. But I think one thing to say about it, we were talking about this exact thing, I don't know, maybe like a week ago. It is a perpetual extension if you're already doing track activities. Right. So that what you're doing with your friends in competition at FD never has to stop and can go from 8 weekends to 365 days. And on the other side, if you haven't been to the track yet, it can be the very first door that you pull.
Bingo.
And that is a odd dynamic that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But in a lot of ways, it makes perfect sense. So
yeah, we do have it in real life. Like we have that with beaters, right? Like beater hoopties, whatever you want to call like your banger car, because when the Shanahans leave high level competition, they go drive Z's and just beat the living shit out of them.
Sure.
Right. So they're doing that, but that's still, you know, $2,000 in car. That's still repairs. There's none of that. There's no repairs. Your overhead purchase is one. Your upgrade path is very linear and reasonable. Like if you want to build a full multi-axis, full motion sim, go for it.
Right.
And it's still going to be less than building a pro car, and it will still cost you significantly less than operating that pro car for its lifetime.
But I think it's that 85 to 90% thing that you said at the beginning of you know, the realism of it is approaching that level. And
Yes.
because of that, you know, I think about, myself as a kid, imagining what it would be like to like be, you know, at Dodger Stadium, bottom of the ninth, you know, down by 3, 2 outs, 3 and 2, all that kind of stuff. Right. And like nowadays you can go into these, you know, kind of things in Vegas and stuff like that. Well, that will recreate that for you. Or I could just open my door and walk 10 feet.
Yeah.
You know, and that part for me is I love that because it creates that, it allows that kid inside of you to kind of like get a little bit more of an oomph, a little bit more of a push back to childlike activities. And where you're not a child or acting childish, but you have that spirit of being a kid again. And you could do that if you're a pro, or you could do that actually if you are a kid, you know, trying to get yourself into something. I love that.
Yeah, I agree. It's something I, in hindsight, wish I'd put more time into earlier on. It's something that I know I should make more time for in my current timeline. Who knows? This winter, I said I got a bunch of time on my hands. I could be in a sim rig every single day. We'll see what happens. But we talk about it during the live stream. We talk about it during the podcast. But like I cannot convey enough how important sim drifting is to the future of our sport. 100%. I think, like a small little known fact about me is like during COVID, my first announcing was working with Lontaine doing I can't remember what the series is called, but it's virtual drifting.
Yeah. Was it VDC?
Right? I think it was VDC. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Good guys.
Yeah, but like that's how I started my career in what I do now. Like
that's insane.
That's just one small thing. But I also know, I know videographers that started editing clips out of a setup because they didn't have the opportunity to go to a track and film it and own a $6,000 camera, but they can play with cameras in a setup, right? How many drivers, we've already seen it multiple times, drivers that have only ever driven in sim, put behind the wheel of a pro car and do it incredibly well.
Right.
So there is a linear path there. And I mean, that's just, you know, off the top of it. There's designers. Is it Hayden that works for RTR was designing liveries in Forza and now is a designer at RTR. Like, you can't tell me this is just playing video games anymore.
Right.
This is as close to real life as you can experience without actually leaving the four doors of your house. And it's so easy for people to poo-poo it because it's like, oh, it's just on the internet. Bro, we live 80% of our lives on the internet now. Like,
right. We're in the internet at this exact moment.
Yeah. Everybody is listening to this over the internet right now. Like you can't say that anymore. Like, look at, I mean, I could go down a huge rabbit hole here, but like,
yeah, you went deep real quick.
Your Matrix, right? Like your brain makes it real. Mm-hmm. It is real. The pressure that a virtual drifter feels in high level competition, I would still say is 85 to 90% of that of real life competition. There are certain things we have yet to master, and it will come around one day. We will get to the point of like neural implants where your body thinks it's overheating in the car, waiting at the line at the top of the hill, and you're actually physically sweating because of how hot it is.
Right.
We'll get to that point. It will happen.
Yeah, we will.
And then it'll be 95 or 99. But anyways, sorry, I went way off my high horse.
I love that got brought out. That you gave me a nice little insight to the level and the passion, and I really appreciate that. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me. I love the sport in all of its aspects. So sometimes I feel bad that I'm not more entrenched in other parts of it. There's just only so many days of the week. But, and
so many minutes of the hour and everything else. Like I've had to learn the hard way, like, especially with, having our first baby, and being like an older person, in the modern era, not so much, but in the like when my parents were growing up, like if they said, when is my son going to have a kid? They're like, oh, he's going to have it at 46. They're like, no, that can't happen.
It's like 21 is late.
Yeah. So, when you add that element to it, the things that you are balancing, whether they're directly related to your work or things that you're interested in or whatever, like you really do have to balance them. Like that concept becomes a real thing, and you have to put priorities of importance on there. There's no time really, except for maybe before bed, for like watching a Netflix show or something like that. Geen's a good show, by the way. I don't know if you watch that.
We just finished it. It's great.
Yeah. Because if you have these pulls, whatever they are, these emotional pulls in like a goal, something that you're interested in developing, a part of yourself, a skill that you want to learn, like you can do it. You don't know how much time you actually have if you put your mind to it. That's another thing that I've learned. But at some point you will reach maximum velocity. And, you have to figure out what that is, and there will be trade-offs.
Well, you just have to decide something else is less important. And you just have to decide what that is. Like, sometimes it is friends. I mean, a lot of the times it's friends, it's social interaction. Sometimes it's a hobby. Like I've rotated through hobbies. Like, I mean, it's absurd. But it's just like, this doesn't bring me joy or value anymore. So why am I putting time into it? Right. So, maybe I'll learn a skill, and that skill will do me well for a long time, and I can always come back to it. But like, I don't need to be doing this anymore. So I don't know. It's just, you got to prioritize what's important. And if sitting on the couch watching Geen is important to you, then awesome. I've got no issues with that. But I agree. I'm back on my like up at 6 a.m.
LFG
ritualistic mode. Pardon?
LFG mode.
Yeah. Like that has been, since I've been back home, that is like the trip I'm on. I feel great. I'm loving it. Like back to the gym, all that fun stuff. But like, I know I can only operate at this level for a certain amount of time before my wife steps in. It's always my wife who comes in and goes, hey, listen, the house can only be so clean. You can only bake so much bread. You can only go to the gym so many times a week. Like, let's find some other things to add into this routine that are less intense and, bring you back to ground a little bit. So it'll probably be February when that happens, if I had to guess, but between now and then, I'm going to get a lot of things done.
Well, it's good because you only need like 30 days of consistent repetition to develop a habit. So, maybe you could derive a certain, or 10,000,
10,000 hours from
10,000 hours. Yeah. So what do you see? You got 10,000 hours in you right now over the winter. Sure. Why not?
I think so. I don't know. I mean, I've been hardcore on baking bread again, and
are you doing sourdough?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So
I'm just in general, because you're an all things chef, right? Like you didn't specialize in one thing, or did you?
No. I mean, I worked in a fair bit of Italian and a little bit of French, but like never specialized. But like, I've tried to make I've made at least 2 different types of bread every week since I've been home. And I've tried not to use pre-existing yeast. Like I'm not trying to use like granular instant. So it is all quote unquote sourdough. Sourdough starter is the yeast that I'm using for all of them. So like it just puts everything on hard mode, because instant yeast or active yeast, it like will immediately ferment. And like within 30 minutes you have a rise. Sourdough, if your humidity is different in the house or the temperature is different in the house or whatever, that's like the difference between a 3-hour and an 8-hour rise, having 4 degrees of different temperature in the house. So it's like my thermometer has been dead set at 70, and I have been like, I've got my oven so locked down now, but like, that's how my brain works. I need to operate. I need to have something like that on the go at all times, or my brain just goes to mush. So I made English muffins this morning for the first time ever. They were terrible. And now I'm going to obsess about making the best English muffins I possibly can until I get to that point. And there will be 6 dozen of them in my freezer, because I won't throw them out, because that's a waste, even though 3 dozen of them are probably terrible.
My wife has about 7,200 mason jars around the house right now from yeast that she got from somebody, and that she's been basically building it up over time and making bread, which has really been really great for me, because I generally I'm not like a big bread fan, but I love the smell of a freshly baked whatever coming out of the oven. And she's been primarily doing like the traditional sourdough. She's done some custom ones, and some muffins and things like that. But like, she got super hyped on it for a while and went real trad wife.
Nice. Yeah. I think I'm in my trad wife phase right now. Like, I'm back at the gym. I bought plants for the first time. I've never owned plants before. And I'm like, all right, we need a spider plant. We need to purify the air in here. I don't know. I'm just in a phase right now, but I'm loving it. So,
I'll have fun talking to you about all this stuff. We can get caught up.
For everybody listening, like, listen, if you ever wanted to understand what a car ride is like from a hotel to the track in the morning, you just got it. This is exactly how these go. And I'm happy to share that, because I think it's important that people understand that, like, you and I both are just normal people put into a very peculiar position and job is really what it is.
Yeah. I don't know how normal I am. I mean, maybe you're a little bit more normal than me, but I can get by. I can put on the mask, pretty well. But underneath, I would say that I'm suffering from some oddities.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think everybody is. It's just how well you can put on the normal and for how long. Because you meet another strange person and you realize like you're strange and they're strange.
You're like, you're one of them.
Oh yeah, just the best feeling. Oh, it's so good. Cool. Well, to wrap things up, I've one more thing I want to get into. What have been, or what has come up that has been either like an issue, a development, or a success where at the beginning of this project, you were like, you would have thought of happened. So like something where you're like, I didn't think we'd have to deal with this, or like, oh, this went significantly better than I was planning on it. So like, has there been any surprises that have happened during the development of Shoreline that you think would be kind of neat to share?
And are you talking specifically about like the track layout or the event as a whole?
Just any of it. I mean, I think it's such an interesting project that like I could have an entire podcast with Andy about the politics of getting this done, one with Kevin just about track design and asphalt, one with you about the business act. Like, I think there's so many conversations that could be had about this one project, but like from your perspective, has there been some part of this whole thing from, nose to tail that you're like, hey, this is kind of cool, and I wish people either knew about this struggle or this success?
Okay, so the one that I would say that is at least most relevant to my experience is, and I'll just do a minor preamble. When we do Long Beach 1, we are on our own weekend, but it is very much a lead into the Grand Prix. That's the vibe. The focus is on the Grand Prix from a big picture perspective. Obviously, that's what it needs to be. We're privileged to be there. And in a sense, some of the audience that goes to this next weekend, the Grand Prix, race where we have our Super Drift, we are kind of like a highline artist walking on his rope, we're the specialty thing at nighttime for not the whole weekend, but two out of the 3 nights. And, I wouldn't say that we're a sideshow, but we're an added value component that leaves those people on Friday, Saturday with like this like rah type of vibe. All of those are dramatically different than the entire focal point being on us, so to speak, for this weekend in every capacity. I never had to have meetings with the mayor's office before this event. I never got invited to, these kind of like events within the city for event promoters and organizers. I've never been asked to participate in the extensive amount of cross promotions that happened with businesses within the city. there's an incredible amount of a feeling of people looking here and a lot of pressure to execute, because it actually is a pretty big deal to take away even a singular weekend and be an event in a popular city where everybody is trying to come. And we're not asking to do something at the convention center inside one of the rooms or one of the convention halls. We're asking for the entire part of the convention center where they would need to use the parking to do a convention in the first place, or at least have people parked there. And then we're asking for all the surrounding streets to be shut down and basically play a Metallica concert from 8 a.m. in the morning until 5 p.m. at night. That is way different in the context of an individual event where we are on the Grand Prix, kind of like we're on their wing. You know, we are doing that one big event on our own, but we are very much part of their weekend, and it's their weekend that gets us our weekend. This is all 100% focused on us, and the pressure is super high. The things that have changed around the preparation for it are super high, not just the fact that it's a new event, but the experience of understanding what it's like to feel like people care about their city so much that they don't want you to F up what you're going to do. And so there's an importance factor there that I think is really, really cool, but it's also really scary. That's the main psychological difference for me for this one. I could go into Long Beach 1. I don't want to get too out of control here, but I could go into Long Beach 1 and basically be like, this is fine. We got this. We've been doing this for a long time. Like
it's cruise control.
We know what to look out for. Just keep it in the lane. I don't know what to look out for here. I know what I could anticipate and what things have happened that we've had to deal with. It could be, something so minor that, is just the greatest thing of the weekend, or also, something that, sucks or whatever. But the way that it's ramping up right now, that's the biggest thing for me so far in this experience that I really haven't had for other venues or other markets because the risk is so high. But the potential payoff for the sport and what it does to the brand and the experience that it can give to people, if it all kind of comes together in the way that I think it can and should, it will be totally worth it.
Yeah, it's a very different experience because we're building the infrastructure, we're building the teams that operate the infrastructure, we're building the track. Like, there are so many things that are afforded to us showing up to a facility where walls are kind of there, equipment's there, even with Long Beach, like the walls are there, the equipment's there, even getting down to, the people working the corners, things like that. That's all an agreement and things that are more or less provided, for costs or whatever, barter or trade. In this case, it's like this is all FDs, like front to back, layout, facility, timing, organization, that all, there's great inspiration. There's good, a good template that's being worked off of. But at the end of the day, if anything goes wrong, there's no track to point to. There's no corner worker that, just was there because, they're with the track. There's whatever, not to add more pressure to you, but like,
yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. But like, that's what it comes down to. You're like, this is all on what is, the FD team.
That was the very first question that I asked is I said, in our modeling that we have, does this break us? If it fails? Because, there's a real, like, you have to think about these kind of things. I went to a festival over this past weekend where, as an event promoter, watching an event promoter, I was like, how did they not have that contingency in place? That something about that doesn't make sense. And they're getting shit on left, right, and center by tens of thousands of people, and now millions of people are commenting on the fact that they didn't, I'm not going to say who it is, but that this thing that they promoted didn't happen, and that they didn't appear to have a contingency in place for something as simple as weather. And, you know, that's how my brain was working as an event person. And so, you know, there are things like that where you have to do the calculus to figure out, if this happens, what could the net result be, and whatever else. I feel like we've done a pretty good job of getting ourselves to a point where, you know, the risks are understood. They're balanced. You know, we've obviously been selling tickets for quite a while. It's performing incredibly well. I think it's going to be a smasher. I think it'll be like a rafter style type of event. And, you know, that's the most important thing, is it's got to have that vibe. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, you can't close a city street for a movie commercial or, you know, anything else and not expect that unless you get help from somebody, that you're going to be able to afford to do it by selling $40 tickets. It's not in the economics. So you have to figure out another way to kind of make that make sense, because the model is totally different than a normal event.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's, so we're just cutting down on rental cars and company food expenses. Then.
Yeah, I'm
so,
walking to the venue from my house, not from the hotel.
Oh, Jesus. Is it bad the whole time? All I could think of is like picturing you in like rave attire at a concert. That's what I went to. Like I went to this like a festival, and I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, he's got the bracelets on.
No, I'm not of that genre. I mean, you've seen me.
Okay.
I mostly wear black, so I'm not of the Jenko genre, which would be like the time. Even when I grew up in that time of the culture, I never could stomach the idea of like, what is the motivation for wearing Jenko pants? I never
fit an entire Discman in your back pocket.
I guess. Well, maybe that is the reason why. You know, you have more pocket space. Certainly, I guess it doesn't help with dancing.
No,
but no, I try to go like you know, black on black and just stay nondescript.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I mean, I know the feeling.
Yeah, a simple.
Constantly wearing all black. Yeah.
I don't need to stain any of my laundry.
Dude, it's great. It's great. Although, funny throwback, I put on 2 shirts before this podcast, and both of them had bread, like bread dough cooked into the shirt. And I went, all right, I need a bread baking shirt, apparently.
Yep.
Because
now you've got that one
shirts.
too.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyways, just to bring it all back around. Cool. Any last word? I know that sounds terrible. Anything that you want to express or say to anybody listening, either before they come to the event or just in general? You and I'll probably do another show at some point, obviously, but just before we wrap up, is there anything you want to close with?
Yeah, I mean, just pragmatically, you know, we're going to have a much more in-depth kind of like what you need to know, you know, event information. There'll be posts, but there'll also be on the event page. You'll be able to prepay for parking if you want to handle that. There's just the expectation that trying to get a lot of that stuff done before you come down to the city is going to cause a lot less, you know, issues for yourself. So that will be one major difference from Long Beach One. Don't go through the motions, you know, use a little bit of the information that we give you to kind of make the experience awesome. It will be awesome. We'll make sure that it's awesome. But you know, everybody hates trying to find parking spaces. And so we've got allocated spaces specifically for this event that are just for our use, which we don't normally have for our event weekend, which is really cool. Other little knickknacks is, you know, when you talk to Kevin, he was down at the track. He may have been working on the track, but he actually has been pouring a slab of concrete as well for something that we've been working on, trying to have it line up for the opening of the promotional window for us, which would be Thursday, because that we've got the big event with Larry on Thursday. And my deadline was today to make that solidified so that we could put together the press package to get out in time. Teams are there, inform everybody what we're doing. And it sounded like we weren't going to hit that deadline. that also involved announcing our schedule for next year. So
Okay.
it could be a maybe or a may not announce at the last event of the year that we've kind of made a tradition. And I was going to do it in this new way because of this thing that we've been working on. But
Remember, this comes out tomorrow. Like, we're recording this the night before this comes out. Just
yeah, and I know I'm trying to frustrate you as much as I possibly can and confuse people.
This is great. I love it.
But this is just a minor insight to the world that we've been living in the past little while. Like, on the eve of the decision, and it's okay. It's just, you can't get everything you want and do everything that you want to do. Even if you're a most optimistic person, somebody's going to shut you down at some time. And, when we're trying to renew every single venue and, potentially some new ones, and also try to look at the modeling for this event and what we need to do to actually make it better next year. It's hard. I'm just telling you, it's hard.
Yeah, the all contracts being up for renewal. I think I touched on it very early in the season. It wasn't something I wanted to push throughout the year, but that alone is an absolute nightmare. Like, just dealing with that, and let's say the rest of the season was the exact same, that would be a rough year. Now you add in this event, all the craziness that just a general year of FD brings. Like, it's been. I definitely think it'll be one that you remember for a very long time.
Add in, we're trying not to conflict with at least 2 major series, one in Europe. I have a very close relationship with Chris from Grid Life. We don't like to step on those guys. They've made tons of sacrifices for us. We like to try to do that for them. There are only so many dates in the year for people to operate, and only so many people that you can please to allow a conflict to become a non-conflict. And at some point, you basically are just like, this is what we have. Now we gotta go. And it may not be exactly what you want down to the finite detail, but it's not just about you. It's about this bigger thing that we're all kind of doing, because I think we all believe in this overarching philosophy of make the pie grow bigger, not slice it into more slices. So it's just, it's a lot of stuff. I mean, I've got so much stuff to tell you though, to add to that. I just don't want to say it right now.
No, it's fine.
It'll open a Pandora's box.
I know. All right. Well, I'll cut you off there. Dude, thank you. Thanks for taking some time out of your absurd schedule to make this happen. Like I said, I just really wanted to talk about this event, and it was good. It was good catching up. You and I haven't chatted in like a month, which is weird. So thank you for that. And for everybody listening and watching at home, if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, please grab them. Keep an eye out for the post. Keep an eye out for the event page. Get all that up-to-date info. Take public transit. It's a ton of fun. You can tell it's memories. You're building memories taking a bus. Oh, there's my alarm. Public transit, all that stuff. Take a bike. I don't know, whatever. Walk, stretch your legs, get active.
I'll pick you up if you need to. I know an Amazon guy too.
There you go. I'm sure he would be down. All right, dude. Well, thanks again. And for everybody listening and watching at home, thank you so much.
Appreciate you, man. See ya.